this review on the oil pressure gauge sending unit that I just installed, and say that it's doing pretty good. I like it. It has good, clear visibility, whether it's in the daytime or at nighttime. It's pretty easy to read because the numbers are so big, and of course the numbers are lit up with an LED lighted digital display, and that makes the clarity just that much more greater. And it only takes like a short fraction of a second glance where I don't have to like take my eyes off the road, trying to see the little tiny small numbers. And for me, that's a big plus, because I can keep my eyes on the road just that much longer, faster, just a lot easier. Now this was only $18, and I bought it on Amazon. I believe you can get them on eBay also. And I noticed that when I start the engine up for the first time when it's cold, the reading on the gauge is about, I don't know, like 45 to 70 or 80. And then the engine warms up and engine gets hot, the oil gets hot in the engine. And I noticed for some reason at idle, the reading drops down to about 18, 20, sometimes 15, 14 or 15, but it usually comes back up. And I noticed the biggest drop in reading on the gauge is when I'm driving the vehicle and shifting through the gears, and then the idle drops when I put it in neutral and coast. There's a sharp engine drop, and it'll come down really low, around 14, 15. I don't know why it does that, but I know these gauges are not as accurate as people think they are. So, I think for me, I believe that when you're getting a pressure reading of about 30 to 40, me personally, I just cut that in half, and say that the real reading's half of that, what the gauge says. So if I'm getting a 40 reading, then it's 20. If I'm getting a 30 reading, it's 15. And I think that's a wide enough, broad range that I can say that that's probably as accurate as it's going to be. And that's okay, because for me, I just want to see that there's a number associated with the oil pressure, because when I lower the idle, like right now, you see it drops from 51 down to 30 right there. So now it's idling steady with my foot off the pedal, and I'm getting 30 reading, or it's showing 30 on the gauge. Now sometimes when I'm idling, it'll show like 14 or 15. So I don't know, I don't know about the accuracy of these gauges or sending unit for that matter. But that's not what's most important to me. I just want to see that there's pressure, there is oil pressure, and the oil pressure increases when the engine speed increases, or lowers when I release the accelerator pedal and decelerate. That tells me that the oil pressure system is working, and it's adjusting. The oil pressure is adjusting and changing with speed of the engine, which is the way it's intended. And that's pretty much all that I care about. I just want to see it. This vehicle here has a dummy light on it on the dashboard. So if the oil pressure gets real low, the red light will come on the dashboard that says oil on it, or it'll flicker. It'll flicker at really low idle. So, and that could mean a number of different things, too. It could be a bad sending unit, or who knows. But so I am satisfied with the $18 gauge, and I know there's a lot of people out there who say, you see a lot of ads. You see a lot of ads on, say for example, YouTube or online, certain websites, for gauges that are like $150, $100, really expensive. Some mechanical, some digital, but really, they're all about the same, except for the looks. They just look different, and some are mechanical and some are digital, so the function and type is different. But basically, they're all not as accurate as you would hope them to be. And for the most part, they're just there to give you an idea of a functioning function and value of unit of measurement related to the oil pressure within the system and the engine. And that's all they're for, just to tell you that you have oil pressure or you don't. So if you get a 0 reading, you don't have oil pressure, or you might have even a faulty sending unit. You don't really know what the problem is. At that point, you should stop the vehicle and turn the engine off for about 5 minutes, and then go out and pull the dipstick out of the engine and check to see if you got oil in it. And if you have oil in it, check for leaks on the ground. If there's oil leaking on the ground, maybe you're losing pressure, but you still have some oil in the engine. So all these things can play out, but getting back to the gauge, it is pretty accurate. And I like the color scheme, although blue's not my favorite color. I actually like green and yellow backlit gauges, but I couldn't find that color in this brand of gauge. I know they do make gauges that do have multiple colors, and you can switch from one color to the other, but those cost a little bit more money, and I didn't want to spend the extra money, and it is what it is. But yeah, you can't beat the price. Now, you can get these parts on eBay too, and as far as eBay goes, well, let me just start here. When you're buying LED light products or gauges, electronics, they're pretty reliable products already. So to me, it doesn't really matter whether you spend $10 on a gauge or 150 on a gauge for LED. They're all going to be pretty reliable and long-lasting products. So I don't have a problem going on the cheap end and just paying $10 for an LED oil pressure gauge, because I know it's going to last a long time. Just one of those types of products. Now some products, other products like starter motors, alternators, and water pumps, stuff like that, are a lot more riskier and don't last as long. You don't know how long they're going to last. You could put a starter motor and alternator on and it could fry on you at the first start or turning the key. And I had that happen to me when I was rebuilding this. After I rebuilt this motor and I started it for the first time, how the rule is, once you get the engine started for the first time after a rebuild, you don't turn it off. You leave it running, to get that oil pressure up and building, and get the seals to start sealing. All the seals in the engine and gaskets and rings and everything. You keep the engine running, And so I bought an alternator on eBay. I think it was around $50. It looked brand new. It looked like a brand new remanufactured alternator. But as soon as I started the engine up, that sucker froze on me and locked up. The shaft locked up on me, and I didn't know it. I didn't know it stopped turning, because there wasn't really any noise. It wasn't making really any strange noise. But I started smelling something. I started smelling something like rubber melting and burning. And I knew that was the smell of a belt, a rubber V-belt on a pulley. And I looked in there, and the smoke was just rolling out from the front of the engine around the alternator. And I saw that the belt or the alternator, wasn't turning. And the belt was just melting and frying on it. And eventually it just came apart. The V-belt just melted and blew apart, shredded it. And I had to shut the engine off. After about 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, I just shut the engine off, which was disappointing because I wanted to keep the engine running for about 15-20 minutes. And so I didn't even bother. I didn't bother returning it. I just didn't want to deal with it at the time, and I just went to the auto parts store and bought another remanufactured one from my local auto parts store, and that one worked, and it's still working today, very, very dependably. And it was about the same price than one I got from the auto parts store. But anyway, I bought the alternator, things like that. You buy things off eBay, you go through a lot of trouble to get it, pay for shipping and everything. Same with starter motors. Now, that brings me to another incident that happened just recently. I just bought a starter motor off eBay. The seller called the starter motor in his ad remanufactured. He had about 5 to 6 photographs of a starter, like brand new, shiny, just like a brand new factory starter that you'd get from the factory or on a brand new car. And I said, well, yeah, that looks pretty good, you know. The pictures look great, you know, that's what I'm looking for. And I didn't really notice it, but he had a no return policy. Or I may have noticed it, I just forgot. And then in his ad it said, tested, items are tested and known to be good working units. And so, okay, this sounds pretty good. Wasn't sure about the no return policy though, because that's all it said. It was no return policy, or returns not accepted, which I thought was kind of weird. But I said, well, you know, if it's a perfectly good product, known and tested, why would you need a return anyway? But anyway, so I got the starter motor. Took about a week. Had it put on, and got in the vehicle, started for the first time, and it went click click. And so not only did I spend $20 on a starter, but I also had to pay somebody to put it on, you know, which was another $140 in labor, or $160, I can't remember exactly. And so I was dead in the water, and so I want a refund, right? I want a refund, but the seller has a no return policy, and so I'm still dealing with that. But the starter, when I got the starter and took it out of the box was taped up with like packaging tape, you know, over the seams and stuff, and it looked like it was one of these older shelf boxes or warehouse boxes, like you'd see on a seconds pallet full of seconds that got sold to some liquidator, and some wholesaler bought it up or something from liquidation.com or something like that. I mean, it just looked really crappy, you know, the box. And it looked like it was reopened, retaped, or, I mean, who knows. But the starter motor was not all shiny and brand new looking and, you know, remanufactured like the pictures showed on the seller's eBay ad. And it actually just looked like somebody took a can of black spray paint, flat black paint, and painted the whole thing flat black. I mean, over the wires and everything. And there was actually rust and corrosion around the terminals on the outside of the solenoid. It was corroded terminals, rusty brown looking, and the cable wire, it looked like the original, you know, the copper cable wire going from the solenoid to the starter motor. It was all dirty and old looking. It wasn't brand new. These weren't brand new parts. And it looked like it, because of the corrosion, it looked like it had been sitting in a warehouse in some high humidity area like Venezuela or somewhere for years. And this is definitely not the starter that was pictured in the photographs. So, you know, I'm still dealing with that, and you know, I'm asking for a partial refund. And anyway, I'm just saying that you got to be careful with these eBay sellers on eBay, because they're kind of screwy. They're a little bit screwy sometimes, and I want a little bit more quality, you know, out of these eBay sellers, and I'm not getting it. Haven't been getting it for years now. Very disappointed with eBay. And now look at my light there. See the red light? See the pressure's gone down below 15, and the red light came on because it's below 20. It's giving me that warning. But you actually don't know what the pressure really is. But it's got pressure, you know, and that's all I care about. You know, and if you get something like this on eBay and you notice, well, you think the pressure seems kind of low, you know, maybe your car says it's supposed to get 30, 60 pounds and you're getting a low pressure reading. Well, one way around this is to raise the idle up, like I'm doing right now. See? Now it's up to 30. Just let the idle sit and run at a higher idle. If you're worried that you're not getting enough oil pressure while it's idling, raise the idle up. If, you know, maybe that'll make you feel more comfortable than knowing that you're getting, or at least you think you're getting the right amount of oil pressure. Me, I'm not worried about it. I mean, as long as I've got, like, I'm showing over 10 to 15 pounds or of oil pressure, PSI, whatever, I'm not worried about it. I know that this vehicle, these old vehicles from the 80s, little 4 cylinders, they get kind of low pressure anyway. You know, they're not like the race cars, you know, that get like 80 pounds, 80 PSI, and require high output oil pressure for racing engines. Not like that at all. So we're working okay. Everything's fine. I'm happy with it. I like it. I like the way it looks. It's fantastic. Love it. And I'm going to cut this video off quick because I'm just rambling on here. And I need to get off and do something else right now. So I hope you enjoyed this video. A little bit of truck talk action today. I kind of like the truck talk. Kind of get into things a little bit. Talk about the way things are, you know, in real life and what people are dealing with auto parts and their trucks and their cars. And hope you guys have a good day and take care of yourselves. Watch your back.